It's the lifeline of Europe. It follows an unstoppable path from the Black Forest to the Black Sea. Its water forms spectacular landscapes. History was written on its banks. The Danube. It has seen many cultures come and go. From its source to its mouth, it covers nearly 3,000 kilometers and traverses 10 countries. The Danube has always been a border, but also a bridge between peoples. Along its path, it meets up with diverse traditions and lives. Everything is in a state of flow, past and present and future. Around 2,000 kilometers from the mouth sits an icon of Baroque architecture on a cliff, the Benedictine Melk Abbey. It's considered the gate to the Wachau, a Danube valley in Lower Austria, where the river is allowed to flow free. The Danube defines the lives of residents in peaceful and in turbulent times. During the flood of 2002, the Hotel Donauwert in Weißenkirchen was no longer next to, but in the Danube. If you can picture it, the water was definitely up to the top of the curtains. That's how high the water was. We piled sandbags up about to the first step. It doesn't make sense to pile them higher than that, because they can't withstand the current and the pressure. It's a huge amount of pressure. Once an inn for raftsmen, the hotel has belonged to the Rosenberger family since 1983. Since then, they have lived through a number of floods. A flood protection wall has only been in place since 2010. If you look at it, thankfully you tend to suppress things a little bit. If we hadn't had flood protection 6 years ago, we wouldn't be here anymore.
Probably, right?
No, because at some point you've had enough. You don't want to do it anymore. When the Bavarian Environmental Agency announces that a flood is imminent, it will be here in 12 hours. This means it's time to get busy. All their belongings have to go up to the second floor. They are still in shock from the 2002 flood. I remember sitting at the staircase above the reception area that night, so the water almost got up to the second floor. And I was really crying my eyes out, and suddenly my father-in-law was standing behind me saying, "Maria, if you don't stop crying, you'll never get the water out." In the meantime, life is back to normal in the hotel, though there were 5 more small floods in the restaurant before the protective wall was built in 2010. But the Danube innkeeper doesn't give up. She was awarded a Grand Million toque for her cooking. Weibesblagloss, harvested right on the slopes of the Danube. Her creations are regional and seasonal. The season determines the menu. In spite of everything, Maria likes to walk alone along the Danube to relax.
Mein Verhältnis zur Donau ist eigentlich fast pervers.
My relationship to the Danube is actually almost perverse, because I love it. It sounds really brutal, but On the one hand, you're always afraid of floods, and on the other, it's your lifeline.
Sie ist halt auch die Lebensader. Also die Großmutter
My
meines Mannes
husband's
hat immer
grandmother
gesagt, die
always
Donau
said,
nimmt und die Donau gibt.
the Danube gives
Und das
and the
ist
Danube
eigentlich,
takes. And
ja,
that's
ganz
really
kurz
how it is,
zusammengefasst,
in a
wie es wirklich
nutshell.
ist.
The Wachau landscape is formed by the Danube and molded by the wine growers' vineyards. The Wachau lies between Melk and Krems, about 80 kilometers west of Vienna. Castles, wineries, old farmhouses, fortresses and ruins testify to times long gone by. The Romans already cultivated wine here. On these hills grow some of the best grape varieties in Europe. Grüner Veltliner grows particularly well at the lower levels. Brothers Heinz and Georg Frischengruber have undertaken a labor of love here, on the right side of the Danube.
Here we are in the Kreuzberg area. This is very special for my brother and me since we inherited it from our grandmother. And as you see, it's a very old vineyard. It hasn't been cultivated as much in recent years. And we decided to develop a very special project, the Grüner Veltliner from Kreuzberg.
It's going to be a rich, complex wine, grown without the use of insecticides. Sustainability and biodiversity are important to the brothers.
We always see to it that we work with a mixture of vegetation. It's ploughed and then mowed, so the crop is in wonderful balance and thrives here. With the Kreuzberg project, because we're on the right side of the Danube, which is not as famous as the other side, we simply want to show what's really possible here and to really produce a premium wine that can compete in the top league in Austria. We put all our energy into it. As you see, the vineyard, the soil, the conditions are perfect.
The Frischengruber family has cultivated wine here on the slopes of the right side of the Danube for 150 years.
If you look at the Wachau in its entirety, I'd say we were given the best hardware as a gift. And we are the software, of course, in combination with nature, with all the beneficial insects, with all the smallest animals. If you think about what an amazing job they do for you, brilliant. We even have time now and then to drink a glass or two.
The higher dry locations are more suited for Riesling. Work in the vineyard takes a lot of sweat. The Frischengrubers pull the grapes by hand. Both brothers have already worked in international wine-growing areas, Australia, South Africa, Chile. But the unique view and the special Danube climate exists only here.
Behind us in the background we have the Danube. If you look very closely, you see there's an enormous flow rate. In the Wachau section, it's still a mountain river. The flow rate always causes a kind of turbulence, a kind of airiness. For one thing, that helps us combat frost. For another, when we sit beside the Danube like now on such a beautiful warm day, it's really refreshing. That is, the Danube has an enormous cooling effect on the valley, especially in summer. And with white wine cultivation in particular, day-night temperature differences are essential for the aroma.
In contrast to the traditional vineyards on the left side of the Danube, the right side has only recently been rediscovered as a region for high-quality wines.
Many young vintners have moved up to this side. Young people have a different approach to wine. I try to produce wines on the northern slopes that stand out because of their freshness. It's becoming increasingly harder to find that in such hot summers, and it's very exciting at the moment. It works really well for us on our side.
So well that the wines from Rossatz on the Danube are no longer a well-kept secret. Directly across from them, on the opposite bank of the Danube, is the town of Dürnstein. Richard the Lionheart was once kept prisoner in the fortress ruins above the castle. The town's history and idyllic location have made the 800-person community one of the best-known tourist spots in Austria. A bit further downstream, a 21-kilometer-long artificial island rises out of the water, the Danube Island in Vienna. Recreation areas on the water can be found right in the middle of the metropolis. Without the transport of goods on the Danube, the city would never have become so famous. The remnants of the imperial royal monarchy can be experienced here in all their glory. Southern Vienna is not quite so grand. There's a somewhat morbid spot hidden in the industrial harbour area. Formerly right on the Danube, now a bit further away from the bank due to frequent floods. The Cemetery of the Nameless. Until 1940, corpses retrieved from the Danube and local suicides were buried here. The names and life situations of most of them are unknown. What's remarkable is that there was someone there to take in these poor souls. Josef Fuchs played among these graves as a child. Now he is the third generation to care for them.
My grandfather was our community gendarme, or policeman. Every time drowned bodies or people who had hanged themselves or suicides were found in the area, the police, the public health officer, and the gravedigger were notified. One day there was someone who had hanged himself in the River Meadow. They drove to the meadow and cut him down from the tree, and when they had him down, they saw he was the son of the gravedigger. From that point on, the gravedigger no longer went to the cemetery. My grandfather took over the burials and carried them out here until 1940.
Now his grandson, Josef Fuchs, volunteers to make sure things are in order. He sometimes has to clear away the remains of nighttime vandalism or battle particularly stubborn weeds. But he wants the cemetery to remain in its natural, mysterious state.
There are two children's graves here in the cemetery. One was a newborn that my father found when he was only 17 himself. It was in a shoe carton. He got it out of the water. Little child, it was buried here. And since it was a male infant, they gave him the name Zeppel, since they didn't know who he was. He was unknown, and all the people who come here decorate the grave with toys for the little one.
But not only children are buried here. Josef Fuchs can tell tales about a number of personal lives.
A little bit further on, there's the grave of Rosa Majewski. She was an 18-year-old servant girl at the time who started working on an estate against her parents' wishes. Unfortunately, she got pregnant and lost her job on the estate. She couldn't go home very easily, and she drowned herself in the Danube. I really heard all the stories from my grandfather. As a child, of course, I found it all a little macabre. Of course, the more gruesome and ugly it was, the more interested we were. Naturally, he told us a lot of things that are not very nice, but well, that's the way it was at the time.
He stores his tools for tending graves in a little shed. Here are also remains of the time when the cemetery was still in operation. The sign for the cemetery when it was right on the bank of the Danube. and the hook that was used to recover bodies.
This is a coffin that's been here in the mortuary since 1940. It was made by a carpenter from a nearby area. He always made 2 or 3 wooden coffins available so that all the people who were buried here were buried in a coffin.
Volunteers still help preserve the memories of the unknown with dignity. The crosses come from disbanded graves in Vienna.
My grandfather put that out into the world. We just continue maintaining them. We see that it has a purpose. His opinion was that they were people too, and I share that idea. Why should they be forgotten? We continue to maintain their graves and see to it that these people's memories can also be kept alive.
The current has changed here following reconstruction of the harbour gateway. This means corpses no longer float up at this spot. Between Vienna and the Slovakian border lies the last large continuous wetland meadow in Central Europe. The Danube is allowed to flow freely here and floods the shore area. Fluctuations of up to 7 meters continue to reshape the landscape of the Donauauen National Park, a paradise for plants and animals. An artificial embankment runs right through the middle of it. One animal species has chosen this easily accessible, unprotected place of all places to lay its eggs, the pond terrapin. National Park Ranger Maria Schindler is underway with her dog and her colleague Astrid Hille. They are looking for nests to protect them from predators like foxes and martens. Are there eggs in it? Yes. Then I'll get the grate. If they discover a nest, the rangers place a grate over it and record the coordinates. The grate's mesh is coarse enough so the baby turtles can slip through and small enough to protect them from the claws of larger animals. Can you please give me the GPS from the bag? The European pond terrapin was nearly extinct when the National Park applied this protection program in 2002. Wetland meadows like these hardly still exist in Central Europe. Probably the main reason they lost their habitats is that entire meadows were drained and entire rivers were straightened. The terrapins need not just the one body of water that they're in, but a number of them. They need deeper ones where they can spend the winter. They need shallower ones with heavy undergrowth, where the young spend time when they're first hatched. They need a very extensive water system to maintain a really good population, where they can survive all the phases of their lives and all seasons. Another reason for the near extinction of the pond terrapins was that they landed in cooking pots as fasting meals in Catholic areas. Fortunately, that's no longer done. Now that the nest is secured, the dog is supposed to find the mother. Maria wants to mark and register all terrapins if possible. Astrid, I found her, but she's already marked. She's an old woman. Information on every individual animal is linked to the markings. Here we have a marked female, number 164. That means she was certainly marked for the first time more than 10 years ago, when we found her egg deposition. But we measure them from time to time, so we know if they're still growing a little. 11.5 carapace width. Plastron length 14.3. The individual shell plates grow throughout their lives. That means they have very small ones at first, and every year a ring grows, like with a tree. They also have a dormancy period in the winter and only grow in the warm periods. On the back, you only see this right at the bottom. That means she's probably already about 20 years old. I probably didn't contribute to her still being alive, since I took the project over 17 years ago, and she's definitely older. But all of us, Heinzi, Astrid and I, probably helped her young survive a number of times. We started with these clutch conservation measures in 2007. They help a lot of offspring make it, hers included, probably. The turtles try to keep their time on land to a minimum because the danger is greatest for them there. They are really water animals, perfectly adapted to water. And she really wants to get back in there. The rangers also care for injured animals, which they release to their natural environment after receiving treatment. She has injuries down on the plastron and on the abdomen, and it looks like she's been scratched. It was definitely some other animal chewing on her. She seems very active. Yes, she seems to be fine. Okay, take care. When Maria started on the protection project, there were about 400 pond terrapins in the national park. By now, there are nearly 2,000. It's a great success, and at the same time, a motivation for the rangers to keep going. From Austria, the Danube flows towards Slovakia and forms the border between both countries for about 7 kilometers, starting in Devin. The Devin castle ruin is part of the district of the capital, Bratislava. Over centuries, Celts, Romans, Slavs, and later even Napoleon battled over this strategic location. The castle lies above the Morava River, which flows here into the Danube. Underneath the castle, an impressive memorial recalls the hundreds of people who were shot by the Czechoslovakian communist regime. The Iron Curtain was raised on the spot in 1950. 3-meter-high barbed wire fences guarded around the clock. In the period leading up to 1989, a number of women and men tried to swim through the Morava towards Austria. Bratislava has been the capital of Slovakia since 1993. An UFO seems to be parked right across from the Pressburg, a stylistic mix of modern, socialist, and classical constructions shapes the cityscape. The capital is still young and has a carefree, open atmosphere. One of the longest cable-stayed bridges in the world has been stretching across the Danube here since the 1970s. Twice a week, 42-year-old Juraj Sobolic earns his money here by taking an unusual walk, as he says, 85 meters above the ground.
This isn't my main job. I'd say it's the cherry on the cake, which is why I really like coming here.
Juraj is a professional firefighter. The elevator goes up to the viewing platform of the UFO and into a bar restaurant right underneath it. From here, he climbs out the window with visitors looking for an adrenaline kick. Student Dominika wants to test her courage today. Juraj, the firefighter, gives instructions and tends to her safety. Everything's ready for her skywalk. I'm starting to get excited. Of course it's super, but I'm also a bit afraid. The skywalk leads people past 50 windows, one time around the UFO at a height of 85 meters.
Okay, good. And now, the first step into the unknown. Here you go. Okay? Everything okay?
Yes, all good.
Super.
Yuri practices the lunge right over the bridge.
Great. Okay, let's go now.
The adrenaline kick keeps going. They're not even halfway through. The unusual shape of the observation tower has been recognized internationally. It is a member of the World Federation of Great Towers.
If you don't have enough of a buzz yet, you can let yourself fall into space more. Every one of these grommets can hold 30 Dominicas. You really don't need to be afraid. I weigh 3 times as much as you, and it's completely safe. A little bit more. I'll hold you from behind. Okay?
You're sure it will hold?
Absolutely sure. Perfect. Wonderful.
It's fantastic. Oh my God, so high. The view, which can also be admired more easily and safely from the platform of the UFO roof, offers a panoramic picture of Bratislava and surroundings up to 100 kilometers far.
Konečne má takú podobu, ako si zaslúži.
To bolo super.
I'm absolutely thrilled. That was amazingly beautiful. Wow.
To bola úplná krása. Wow.
There is also a beautiful and unusual modern construction 25 kilometers south of Bratislava. On a peninsula in the middle of the Danube, the Danubiana, a unique art museum named after the great current that was called Danuvius in Roman times. The sculptures all around the park are exposed to wind, weather and water. A Dutch patron and a Slovak gallerist founded the Museum for Contemporary Art in 2000. Their intention was to use art to connect distant lands and cultures, just like the river does. Just a couple of kilometers further on, the Danube has formed an extensive island area that is shared by 2 countries, Slovakia and Hungary. The much larger Hungarian part is called Sigid-Kötz, a water oasis for animals and people. The riverbed of the Danube was repositioned during the construction of a Slovak power plant. The old arm of the Danube in Hungary was dry for a long time. Thanks to renaturalization measures taken by Hungarian scientists, the ecosystem has been restored today. Nearly 60 kilometers onward, János Gula is a factory worker and blacksmith. He spends every free moment on the Danube. There was a flood recently, but now the water level is back to normal. It's the perfect time to indulge in his passion. Janos is looking for gold. To learn the technique, he watched old movies about gold mining. This region around Gonyú in Hungary was particularly popular with gold panners in the 1930s. Years of trial and error have made Janos a pro.
You have to examine the sand, not just look for sparkle.
After initially looking around, he quickly finds the signs he was looking for.
Here, for example, here a bit of red is visible. The great Danube sand with red granite in it. It's iron powder, magnetite. We should find something here.
Janos acts quickly to set up his self-built gold washing equipment. He has even brought along a generator to make sure everything runs like clockwork. No pressure at all. He enjoys every second on the bank of the Danube.
Maybe I'm exaggerating, but for me, the Danube is divine, a paradise. I really love it. It provides us with fish, firewood, a bit of gold, and, well, maybe even luck. I can't describe it any other way.
One shovelful of gravel after another. Janos can keep it up for hours. It's almost an addiction. As long as there is water in the Danube, there will always be gold, he says.
There's already less gold because of all the power plants. They hold it back. During floods, everything is washed over and there's more again. At one time, you could find 3 to 4 grams a day. Now you can only find 0.5 grams or 0.8 grams, depending.
The fine river gold is scarcely visible to the eye. He uses a rubber mat. If there's a flicker of gold, it sticks to it. He carefully rinses the mats in a bucket. The sediment from the bucket then goes into the gold pan. And the sand actually begins to shine. Fine gold dust is visible. The Danube has brought him luck again today. Kilometers further downstream, the Danube flows past Esztergom, the former capital of the Kingdom of Hungary. The Danube now forms the border to Slovakia. The border crossing is in the middle of the bridge. Visible from a distance on the castle hill sits the Basilica of Esztergom, one of the largest churches in Europe. Near Visegrad, the east-westerly direction of the river makes a nearly 90-degree curve towards the south, the Danube Bend. German inscriptions on buildings are testimony to settlers who moved to this area in the 18th century. The Danube Swabians arrived at the time in special boats, the Ulm barges. The government had encouraged them by offering benefits since the population was severely depleted following the wars against the Turks. Workmen were needed. They also came to Watz, and created a new home for themselves here in Hungary. In 1994, construction workers in the Dominican church in Wachau coincidentally discovered stairs to a crypt. They had no idea it was a sensational find. After they reported it, a small group of scientists immediately hurried in to investigate the interior of the crypt. Among them, ethnologist Anita Čuković. The first time she entered the crypt in the winter of 1994, she couldn't believe her eyes. We had never experienced anything like it. We found a portal into the past, into the 18th century. It felt like you could meet the people from over 200 years ago, who had built the city with their own hands following the Turkish exile. Men, women and children, various citizens of Waltz, aristocrats, members of the army. They were all telling us something about themselves, and we tried to listen to them. The scientists found 265 coffins with mummified corpses. Among them were many ethnic Germans. Between 1730 and 1840, many honorable citizens of Wachau were buried here. The reason for the good condition of the corpses: constant air circulation in the crypt, dry air, and minimal changes in temperature. The higher the coffin had been stored, the better preserved the mummy. In the lower coffins, only skeletons were found. Today, a number of the mummies lie in this museum, a former wine cellar. Magdolna Salomon died aged 9. She probably came from a rather wealthy family. You can tell by the grave goods. She was one of the better preserved mummies because her coffin was right at the top. Scientists from all over the world have been investigating the mummies for decades. Ethnologist Anita Čuković is primarily interested in the clothing and inscriptions on the coffins. About every 10th mummy provides information about its name, age, and situation in life through paintings and grave goods. This woman is wearing a typical robe from Wachau, a dress with a long scarf and a cap underneath. A testament was found with Georgi Stevanović that shows he was a tailor, a wealthy man. He had a house and a vineyard and was married 3 times. The settlers brought their own burial culture with them to Hungary. The German coffins were colorful and rich with symbols. The children's coffins were blue. In the late Baroque, at the beginning of the 18th century, colors have symbolic meaning. Blue stands for the heavens, or angels in the celestial sphere. This is illustrated by the depiction of a small angel on the coffin, for example. Anita hopes that the museum will provide a look at the 18th century and stimulate thought about life's big questions. Shortly before Budapest lies the small Baroque town of Szentendre. The tranquil streets and green surroundings have always attracted creative people. In the 1920s, art students founded an important school of painting and artists' colony here. Its influence is still evident today. Amarila Kniha is a painter who seeks inspiration from nature in the diverse water landscapes of the Danube. I pay attention to reflections. the reflections on the surface of the water. They're the only thing I pay attention to. The reflections make my work easier. They form an abstraction of the real image, which I just have to transform through the painting process. The constant change, the rivers and water are important elements in the history of painting. Perhaps that was also a reason that many artists settled here in Szentendre. More than 200 painters, sculptors and artisans live in the city. There's a gallery on nearly every corner. The lampshades over the streets were an art project, but the residents liked them so much that they stayed. With the photos she took on the banks of the Danube, Amarilla returns to the studio that the Hungarian government has provided. Selected grant holders can dedicate themselves entirely to their art in this space. Amarilla has already primed the canvas with paint. Her technique requires a dry base, so everything can flow nicely over it. On the canvas and along the riverbank, objects and colors come together and mix with each other.
Összefolynak a dolgok, összefolynak a színek.
Her style is called dripping or action painting. Tirelessly, she paints and drips the colors on the canvas that lies on the ground. She's not interested in a realistic image of the riverbank. Inspired by the landscape, she processes her memories, experiences, and thoughts in the studio. She's also happy to just let the paint run down the canvas sometimes. It all seems random, but at the end it bears an astonishing resemblance to the photo of the Danube riverbank.
I
deliberately apply the paint horizontally at first, then I let the drops run down vertically and spread them in a horizontal direction again. This produces the right rhythm of color and blending for me. Amarilla says working on the floor is like a rush of energy. She finishes the painting process on the wall. It can take days and sometimes weeks before she's satisfied, and the atmosphere on the water has been translated to her artistic world.
Amikor sétálok a Dunaparton és fotózok,
when I walk along the banks of the Danube and take pictures, I process some of the thoughts and feelings I have into images. But this process is completely unconscious.
Valahogy beleteszem a műbe is, de ez teljesen tudat alatt történik. Számomra a Duna erőt jelent és energiát.
To me, the Danube radiates strength and energy. When I go to the Danube, this energy recharges me. Definitely.
Egyértelműen feltöltödöm ezzel az energiával.
She passes this energy on in workshops for children and adults, and thereby keeps the legacy of the Szentendre artists' colony alive.